I'm Jeff Frederick, and welcome to 10 Questions. My guest today is Josh Nason. Here we go. So Josh, what do you do at Drury, and what was your Drury story? How did you get here?
So I'm the Dean of the Hammons School of Architecture and an architecture professor. And I got here because I was reached out to by the search committee last year. So I'm still new. I got here in July, right after you.
I can relate.
Like we came at the same time. And I was at another school, and I was in an administrative position, and I was trying to decide what was next for me, and I got a phone call asking me if I was interested in applying. And at first I was like, no, thank you. But when I looked into the school and saw the values of the school, saw the unique arrangement of a professional architecture school and a liberal arts institution that's student focused and teaching intensive, I just fell in love.
It's an easy place to love.
It's wonderful.
When you were little, what did you think you would be when you grew up?
Probably a bank robber. No. When I was really little, I wanted to be a baseball player. And I loved playing sports. I played baseball and hockey and a couple of other things, and I really thought that was my path. But then in high school, I started taking art classes. And I had drawn, I didn't even realize as a kid that I was drawing all the time. And I drew the silliest stuff. I would design tennis shoes. I would draw uniforms for my brother and I to play football. And he's like, can we just play? And I'm like, no, we have to have the uniforms. Like there's gonna be logos and cities. And so when I started taking art classes more formally, I realized that I wanted to do something creative, that I wanted to do something in drawing. And I took a drawing and a drafting class and thought, this is it. Like I want to do buildings. I want to draw things.
And no banks were actually robbed in pursuit of your career.
No banks. That would be nice. No, that would be terrible. But no crimes.
So what's your favorite place on the Drury campus?
It sounds silly, but my favorite place is this. It's my office. And maybe it's I spend too much time in here. But I love this space. I've got a great view out of these windows. And then I love the wall of resources and things. And I keep student projects and drawings that I've done. And so there's a place here where there's a lot of beautiful things, I think, and a lot of beautiful knowledge. And I like being in here with my door open. Like students know they can just come see me at any moment. Faculty pop in every day. And that's the best part of the job.
That's Drury right there.
Yeah.
So what's the first concert you ever went to, and what's the one you hope to get to next?
So the first concert that I went to was actually by accident. When I was young, my family and I were walking through downtown Fort Worth, and we walked into a Charlie Daniels band.
Oh, that's so funny. I saw him very early, about the same age.
That was the first one that I kind of went to. Now, in terms of shows I paid for, we went to a show when I was in high school, and it was a couple of ska bands in the 90s. So we went and saw The Impossibles and a band called Animal Chin. And I still listen to them this day periodically.
That's
it's fantastic. The next one, there's a band, an indie band out of Portland that I've been listening to for a long time called Typhoon. And I haven't been able to see them yet. And so they only it's like a 14-person band, and they only do a couple of shows a year, usually on the West Coast. So I think this summer I'm going to try to sneak out there.
Some long-range planning. Yeah, for sure. Tell me about someone at Drury who really makes a difference.
I've thought about this a lot because the list is pretty long. I will say my faculty colleagues in HSA are just remarkable. Two that come to mind right off the top of my head are the two that I work with the most closely, and that'd be Dave Beach, the Associate Dean for the school, who just does everything that is asked and does it very, very well. And Nancy Chigareshi, who is also an Associate Dean. She is just absolutely remarkable and is totally student-focused. She leads with kindness and empathy, and those two people and my other colleagues are just remarkable.
Have to have a desert island question. So you're on the desert island. What's the food you're going to miss the most?
Well, I only eat coconuts, so as long as there's I will miss, I would miss Thai food. Like if I could bring Rama Thai with me.
Hotter the better?
To the island. I like some moderate heat.
Okay, got it, yeah.
Heat. Kind of 75% in
nice.
that range. I love food. And so being able to eat a wide variety of things, I would have a hard time if I was cut down to one thing.
What's the most surprising thing you've learned since you got to Drury?
The most surprising thing is I come from a very big institution. And the surprising thing is how much access being smaller gives us to our students. And so I've always known my students' names and like the students that were in my kind of purview, but being able to just have direct contact with all 200 architecture students, and then there's 1,500, or so students on campus, like that size allows us to be really intentional and individual, and I knew that kind of theoretically, but witnessing it day to day is pretty awesome.
It's very fulfilling.
Yeah, it's the best.
Okay, so best piece of advice you ever got?
So I had just graduated high school and I was getting ready to move away from home. And I was riding in a car with a family friend, a guy that was my parents' age named Joey Harrison. And he gave me the best piece of advice I've ever heard. He told me, he said, Josh, there is something to love in every person that you meet. It's your job to find it. It's not their job to show it to you.
Wow, that's great. And so ever since, you have been figuring that out.
I try.
Yeah.
I hope I do a good job at that. I mean, there's moments, where you get frustrated or testy, but I do think that's been a guiding principle in my life. And I think about it very frequently because people are amazing. If you give them a chance and if you look for things to love about people, they'll surprise you and they'll show you how good they are.
Now you get to invite anyone you want to come to Drury, to perform, to have lunch with, to spend the day. Who would you pick?
Oh man, we would have a very long...
A long line,
We'd
yeah.
have a very long
Well, you
line.
can name more than one.
We would need quite a budget to bring the list of people. A couple of people that I'd like to bring. One is I'd like to bring an old professor of mine. He's passed away, unfortunately, but his name's Levius Woods. And he taught at the Cooper Union, which is a fantastic school in New York. I was very privileged to study with him for a couple semesters. And he taught with such passion and advocacy and also kindness. But he was a very intense, dedicated person. And I love drawing. I draw for my work. I talk about mapping, and his work and his craft was just really, really remarkable. And then, there's a list of it's a surprisingly long list of incredible women in the history of architecture that have never been given enough credit, because it was the age that they practiced in. But I would love to bring some of these really powerful women in so that we could all learn from them. One of them is an architect named Anne Ting. And so Anne worked for Louis Kahn, a very famous architect, and a couple of others. And she was the project manager on some of the projects that have kept his reputation sterling throughout time. And it took a long time for people to realize that she was the architect of the Trenton Bathhouse, that she was the one that was running some of these projects. And I always have found her to be brilliant and kind of mysterious and incredible, and I'd love to bring her.
That'd be outstanding. So, last question. Most interesting place you've ever traveled to?
This is one of the best parts of my job. So when you teach architecture and you teach urbanism, you get to go to a lot of places. And so most interesting place I've ever been, I think Iceland is one of them, just because it's so stark and unique. I actually love Winnipeg. If you can go to Winnipeg in February when it's 40 below zero, do it. It's great. But I think my favorite cities in the world are Seoul and Tokyo. Like I love mega cities. I love the intensity of those big places. People are remarkable and helpful and kind. The food is great. They're both pretty amazing places.
In a sea of built spaces, you can still feel at home in places like that.
Absolutely.
Exciting.
Absolutely.
And that's 10 questions.
Great.
Thanks again. This
Thank
is great.
you.
We could have gone with 20 questions, don't you think?